I'd like to welcome everyone to the February the 3rd, 2025 meeting of the Calhoun County Commissioners. Please join me in a moment of silent prayer followed by the pledge of allegiance. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which is stands one nation, indivisible, with liberty. Okay, public comments. First one is Vernon Massengill.
Mr. Chairman, I'm here as two hats, so give me a little extra time if you would be so kind. Praise when praise is due and commendation when commendation is due, unfortunately, is overlooked quite a bit. When a crisis strikes, it's always a huge challenge for everyone involved, but especially if it's a 911 center. The pressure is immense, the stakes are high. For most, it could take several weeks to fully transform and move an entire 911 center. But thanks to the incredible efforts of our team at the 911 center, we were back up and running in just 2 full days, no disruption in service, and not a single call lost. That's a monumental achievement, and the credit for that success is due to some truly outstanding leaders and partners in this county. First of all, I'd like to recognize some key individuals who made this possible. These people went above and beyond to ensure the safety and the continuity of our 911 call center operations. Though they're not listed in any particular order, I'd like to thank Mr. Kenneth Everett, who is the 911 director who oversaw this entire huge undertaking. Also, a special thanks to Jason Booza from AT&T, Adam Scruggs from Scruggs Electrical, who went far beyond his call. He got off of a job and came and helped. Also, the team from Person County 911 Center who took our emergency calls during this time. Also, I'd like to acknowledge Mr. Jason Benson, the IT director here in the county, R.D. Hayes, the maintenance director, B.J. Powell of the maintenance department, A.J. Fuqua from solid waste, John Spinfield and Heather Massey from the 911 center. They did everything from pull cords through the wall, connecting computers, getting desks back up in working order. And most of the folks worked 18 to 20 hours with little or no sleep. I'm sure I'm probably forgetting someone, and please forgive me if I did, but each person contributed to this success, and for that, I'm deeply grateful. Thank you all. The employees truly exemplified what it means to work together for the good of the community. Their commitment and dedication have made all the difference. In fact, their efforts saved this county a significant amount of money for their effort. These employees we should be grateful for them and give them the praise. I had the privilege of making several visits down there as chairman of the 911 board and witnessed firsthand their incredible work. I stayed out of their way, by the way, so they could get it done. I feel it's important for you, the commissioners, and the public to hear this from someone who was there and observed this remarkable effort. To those all, we thank. Putting on the second hat, Mr. Chairman, fire marshal hat. Last Wednesday, this county experienced one of those days where every fire station responded to some type of fire-related call, and many areas saw multiple calls in a short period of time. Daytime staffing, as you all know, and I've made you aware, is always a challenge. Volunteers are in short supply, but we've pulled together to get this job done. On this day, we saw one moment when one fire call in Pelham required the response of 10 fire stations 4 fire stations out of Virginia, 3 out of Rockingham County, and 3 out of Caswell County. The other 7 in Caswell County were on calls of their own or either standing in for other fire departments in case there was another call, which we had another structure fire and a vehicle fire during that time. This event is a reminder of just how critical our county employees and volunteers are, not just in their daily roles, but when the unexpected arises. Whether it's through routine operations or stepping in to offer their training and expertise during emergencies, our employees here are here to assist the taxpayers of this county. The taxpayers are their employers. They are the backbone of this community, both the employees and the volunteers of the fire department. And by the way, during the 911 downtime, all 10 fire departments were manned on a weekday afternoon from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. in case something catastrophic happens at the 911 center. I would hope that you would allow the employees who are fire personnel to serve their employer, which is the citizens of this county. Whether it's they do it on their comp time, whether they make it up on the clock that day or the next day, or whether they're still on the clock. Help is needed at all times. Y'all have been told how retention and recruitment is tough. I understand some of you may question the liability of the county. These employees are still serving the taxpayers of this county, which again are their employees. I want each of you to also think about the liability that the employees have, the volunteers have, the volunteers have each time they respond to an emergency call. Just remember, they may not come home. Please do the correct thing. Don't be part of the problem in our recruitment and retention of volunteer fire personnel in Caswell. Just remember, each of the fire personnel in Caswell put their lives on the line each time they respond, and they volunteer to put their lives on the line. Thank you for your time.
Jeff Oakley.
You know, it's kind of ironic. I'm up here at Jeff Oakley. I've been on the Prospect Hill Fire Department for 38 years. And I come in 87, 2 or 3 years into it. I can say, you know what, Jeff, what you looking to do here? I said, I like to see Prospect Hill be better, as good or better when I leave as it is now. And that's why I say it's ironic that Mr. Massagill told the same thing that I'm pretty much going to say to you myself. In those 38 years, we've got some really good equipment down there, and it is a better department, but the personnel thing, that's our problem. And I kind of sat around and thought about it, and I actually had a buddy coming with me tonight. He got sick. He's supposed to be doing the speaking, so I'm stuck with the speaking. So y'all forgive me for being a little bit nervous, shooting from the hip here. I have seen what Mr. Massagill said. I was on a call one day, and a guy coming down the road, there was a Station 4 fireman that I went to school with pretty much all my life. And it was about 100 degrees and 100% humidity and full turnout year. And we was cutting a woman out of a car. And Jeff Oakley was the only young man on the scene. So he was running the jaws. And guess what? Jeff Oakley was done. And that man walked up behind me and grabbed those jaws and went to work. It's amazing to have departments that's willing to work with us. We've got a serious problem with the age of our fire departments. I had a choice. I could sit on a recliner and not say nothing. I could come up here and look at each one of y'all in your face and say, hey, you know, this is something we're gonna have to look at in the future. You know what I mean? I think about, I don't know how many exact numbers, but if we had a mass exodus of everybody that could retire at Prospect Hill, probably have to shut the doors, and a lot of departments in the same position. I just want to make y'all aware this of this problem. And thank y'all for your time.
Right, recognitions, Mr. Ingram. Ms. Wynn. Mr. Rhodes.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Ms. Gwen, it's been an honor working you on the board. I hate to see you leave. We always didn't vote along the same each and every, but we got along. You're exactly right. I'm gonna miss you on the board, and I wish you the best in your endeavors, and thank you for serving.
Mr. Smith.
Yeah, I opened the paper last week and read that Dr. Pamela Senegal was retiring from PCC. I want to publicly thank her for all she's done for the county and PCC, her leadership and vision will lead us down the road and pay dividends in the future. Very appreciate it.
Ren.
I want to echo what Mr. Rhodes said about Ms. Gwen. I've only served with her a short time, but I've watched her since she got on board. And she's been a steady person. And I know you're not leaving till the end of February, but you got one more meeting, I guess. And we'll miss you.
Well, there's some other meetings going on from this board that I'll be doing too this month, so I'll be busy this.
I would like to recognize two former USD employees. Jill Rudisil, who retired from the Farm Service Agency about a year ago. Jill had 37 years of service in here in Calvin. And Beth Smithy, who retired last week. She had, I believe, either 26 or 28 in Caswell, but a total of 38 part of her time she started in Rockingham. Both of these ladies worked with Caswell County farmers to assist them in any way they could regarding any type of USDA program that they were entitled to. And they will be sorely missed, both of them. I'd just like to thank them for the service. All right, approval of the agenda. Mr. Rand, I believe you said you had something you wanted to add.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add two items to the agenda. One is a proposed amendment to the personnel policy. And the second to discuss an open meeting situation.
Any objections from the board? If not, that will be items, if I can get my computer to work here. The items 13 and 14 on the agenda. With those additions, do I have a motion to approve the agenda? So moved. Have a second? Have a second. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. All those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. All right, presentations, the outdoor storage violations. County Manager, I believe we're going to cover this.
Briefly, our UDO gives our planning director authority to assess fines on property owners that violate our ordinances. And we are having a lot of complaints about junk cars and the failure to comply with the outdoor storage ordinance. So our planning director, Jason Wellington, is gonna talk about a strategy to move forward and deal with these issues.
Thank you, Manager Pascal, Mr. Chair, Board. So for years, Caswell's not been able to enforce the Unified Development Ordinance to its fullest due to the inability to collect fines that are levied or achieve closure and compliance on properties that were in violation. So in order to clean up Caswell, we will continue to help the property owner know how to be compliant. However, we must draw a line and make consequences real and impactful to the violator. Our common goal is to appreciate our land, take pride in our county, and to show it off to our visitors. So I want to start with General Statute 160A, 175 code enforcement. There's three things within that ordinance or general statute. An ordinance may provide that violation subjects the offender to a civil penalty, and it is to be recovered by the county in a civil action in the nature of debt if the offender does not pay the penalty within a prescribed period of time after he has been cited for violation. So this does allow us to assess a civil penalty. An ordinance may provide that it may be enforced by an appropriate equitable remedy issuing from a court of competent jurisdiction. So we can take them to court eventually. An ordinance that makes unlawful a condition existing upon or use made of real property may provide that it may be enforced by injunction and order of abatement. The General Court of Justice has jurisdiction to issue such an order. 160A will then go on to provide authority to counties to enforce removal of solid waste as well as abandonment of junk vehicles, which is the model that our actual nuisance orders follow. I'll touch on this in a minute. The Castle County UDO describes the process that must be taken to handle ordinance violations. While this process describes violations in general, tonight I want to focus on our most common violation, which is junk cars. But as noted in your packet that I sent to you, we usually respond off complaints. So someone will call into our office, someone may call a commissioner, and we will respond. We cannot drive the entire county looking for violations. A site visit is performed, and sometimes, if they are home, a discussion is had with the property owner or tenant. And I stress tenant. Notice that I said that word tenant. We'll go to that later. A letter is mailed certified as a follow-up, and most of the time as a first notification. The letter will indicate the nature of the violation, the corrective action needed, action to be taken by the county if compliance is not met within 30 days, which are civil fines, and describe the appeal process. So they can appeal these violations, and we describe that, and they can appeal to the Board of Adjustment through the clerk. In the past, after multiple letters have been sent out, somehow the process stops. I am, as I spoke last meeting, dealing with property that are in violation going back 2 to 3 years. No fines are collected, nor compliance met. So tonight, I just want to clarify the civil fine process so that you are aware of the process. As multiple complaints are coming into the planning department. I'm getting at least one a day, it seems. I want you to be able to see this process too. I would like to be able to see this process to the end, get these areas cleaned up and in compliance. So as mentioned in your packet, the language that stated the first meeting will now move to 30 days. So at the 30-day mark, a site visit will be performed. At day 30, if substantial progress has been made, an additional 15 days will be granted and fines will begin on day 46. So we are working with the violator. If the site is compliant, a letter will be mailed notifying the property owner and the tenant. If the property is not in compliance, a letter will be mailed notifying of civil penalties as listed and in your packet. Now, these civil penalties seem harsh. Mr. Chair, may I pass out a piece of paper?
Yes, sir.
I want to simplify this. I know you have got a lot of paper in your packets. So your piece of paper picks up at the site visit letter, day 30 site visit, progress 15 more days added, no progress, civil fines. Our ordinance actually states these fines. And they are, as you can see, and for the public, I'll read them out. Day 31 is $50. Day 32 is $100. 33 is $200. Day 34 is $300. And day 35 to 60 is $300 per day. So they will be cumulative fines. By day 60, your fines would be $8,450. There is an option at day 60. If the property is compliant, the fines will be cut in half. That is an option on the table if the board finds that necessary. So 30 days civil fines begin, they are cumulative. We will go back out at the 60-day mark. If they are compliant, we'll cut the fines in half. If they are not, at that point, the violation becomes a nuisance. And with our nuisance ordinance, which is a separate ordinance, at that point, we can have our attorney become involved, we can have law enforcement become involved, and have these vehicles removed from the property. So I come to you with options. And frankly, as a casual citizen, I can tell you I'm torn on a few things. Fines waived after 60 days could be an option. And I state that because one of my planning board members did come to me and say, we are asking to clean up a violation that in some cases has taken many, many years to create. So I wanted to run that by you to see how you felt about that. The other option or the other thing to consider is the tenant. I spoke about the tenant earlier. Most of our violations that I'm seeing, at least the last several that we've had to enforce, are actually tenants and have landlords. And the property owners obviously are the landlords. So we have assessed the fines towards the tenant. I will tell you that I have been successful with these last two due to contacting the landowner and putting some pressure on the landowner. The landowner, in some cases, doesn't get the mail and never knows of the tenant being in non-compliance. So do we hold the landlord or the property owner responsible? To what degree will we hold them? I will tell you that there are options as far as debt set-off collection for non-payment of fines. And also through the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners. I do know through studying this briefly that this money that is collected would actually go to the school system. There is attachment and garnishment that could be used, and Attorney Johnson could probably speak more on that. But one final is 168 200.1 states that a chronic violator can have a lien on their property and shall be collected as unpaid taxes. So I would like to keep Attorney Johnson and the legal system out of it as much as we can to keep the cost to the county down. We have to draw the line, and we can't go back to what we were doing. But again, I would like to ask if there are any questions to this simple procedure that I did pass out to you, and get the thoughts from the commissioners on that.
Questions?
Yes, sir.
Now's the time. Yes, sir.
if they, if they refuse not to pay anything or not do anything. So you're proposing then after a period of time that we took making a nuisance,
Yes,
and
sir.
that gives us more authority to
Yes,
do
sir.
something.
Yes, sir.
And if they would go to court and if they find them, what's to force them to do something then?
So just a brief, quick 101 on our nuisance for you. So the nuisance ordinance can be used for one vehicle or multiple vehicles. A nuisance vehicle is a vehicle on public or private property determined and declared to be a safety hazard. The sheriff, manager, or county commissioner can enter the property if you deem it to be a abandoned vehicle on that property. Our nuisance actually states that. If registered and plated, the owner's given 24 hours if it's in state. If not state, if it's out of state, it's 72 hours. But we have to let them know by phone that we will be removing that vehicle. The sheriff will go with us. Okay.
Sounds like that.
Okay.
But what can be done that the county gets paid? Can we sell those abandoned vehicles?
Those
Get whatever you can get for them?
vehicles will go to the tow truck operator.
Okay,
The tow truck operator has
Yes,
30 days before they can do anything, but there's a process prior to that that we have to go through before we can even get to that.
so really, it's nothing we can force penalties on. I mean, I agree with the penalties. But you're gonna get, people that just not gonna pay them.
Yes, sir. And I think
That's a
that's
problem.
truly been our problem over the last
That's
4 or
the
5
problem.
years.
And I don't know if you can add more teeth to it to make them pay, but that's just not has done in North Carolina. We can't attach the property, can we?
That would be Attorney Johnston
Okay,
question.
and as far as a tenant and landlord, I think the landlord should be notified every step of the way.
Yes, sir.
Because eventually it's gonna come back on the landlord. It's on his property. They might rent it, but it's his property. So he or she should be in on the deal all the way. Maybe they could talk to the tenant and get more out of them than you could or me.
Question, you can get the vehicle moved to the nuisance ordinance, and you can, find them, have a judgment on them to collect the money, like Brand said, that if they're a tenant, they may not have property at all, so what are you gonna attach? If it's just a tenant.
Right.
Can you go beyond that and attach the wages? Is that possible? If you were to receive a judgment?
It has been done through some readings and options that I looked at today. And again, that is Attorney Johnston question.
All right. Next question. I disagree somewhat with Commissioner Wren in that it's very difficult in most cases for a landlord to collect monies that are due from a tenant, whether it's to him, in many cases, or to Castle County. And they're protected by various laws and so forth, where you can't evict them for a long period of time. So it puts the landlord in a position where he's caught in the middle. So I think it should be made aware at every step, and he should do everything he can to help the county collect that money. I think ultimately it comes back to the tenant. We need to attach him some way to get him to pay those fees.
But that seems to be the problem, that I think. I think you're proposing a good law, but it doesn't have.
We just have to have teeth.
It doesn't have teeth. This dog barks with it, but he don't chew his teeth real well.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Any other questions?
Mr. Attorney,
Yes, sir.
After this 30-day process is up and it goes to the court system, is that correct?
Yes, sir. The county planner or the board could choose to allow the county attorney to file civil action involved in this matter. And we would need to serve the record owner of the property. Once you get service, we would have a hearing in front of the magistrate or the clerk. Now, eventually, the county could obtain a judgment. But one good point was made, if the individual doesn't own property in the county, then we wouldn't be able to attach it. And even if they do own property, the judgment's good for 10 years. The research that I've done doesn't allow the county to force sale of any property. So I think if the county is looking, board is looking to clean up the county or enforce this ordinance, in my opinion, the best way to approach this is through the nuisance ordinance. And that's found in chapter 20 of the code of ordinances. This would allow the tow truck operator to actually remove the vehicles from the property. And this would have to be done under the authority of the sheriff's department. So we wouldn't need to have the sheriff or the county would need to have some type of agreement in place to know where all parties stand moving forward, including the tow truck operator. They would need to know what their obligations are, what their benefits would be.
Just a thought. I'll lose that thought. Vehicles are taxable entities, right? Licensed or non-licensed, they are still taxable. I think we ought to talk to Mr. Bernard about adding, when you find the vehicles or vehicles that are actual taxes, they get a tax bill on. Because I'm sure they're not listing them if they're untagged.
Are they, would they still be if they're untagged?
Oh, yeah,
and
you
registered?
read that little
Personal
that
property.
little envelope, a little card, Thomas Bernard sends that to you, says unlicensed vehicles.
So that would be in the case also of a outdoor storage facility that has purchased these vehicles and brought them on their property, would be the same as a.
Well, are you talking about a mechanic shop?
A lot of our mechanical shops tend to store junk vehicles on their property, be able to use parts and whatnot. And they will purchase these vehicles at sales or how they are actually donated to some of them. And they collect and collect to the point where they have to become an outdoor storage facility in order to comply with our ordinance. So, yeah,
But a vehicle that is on a man's shop yard, that's owned by somebody else, and he's just waiting to get work on them, or they get the money for him to work on them, that wouldn't be part of this, would it?
correct. They are exempt of 25 vehicles. They can have 25 customer vehicles.
Or if they're
outside of
holding, or
the
they're
fence.
holding wrecks for the state. They would not be counted either, would they? A lot of times.
There is not a clause, and I know what you're speaking about. There is not a clause, but most of those work with us to the point where they keep those vehicles somewhat out of view. Because they may have 30 cars one week, and then 2 weeks later, those 30 cars are gone because they've been picked up.
You can't get rid of those. It's highway patrol says hold it.
Right.
You have to hold it.
Right.
Sometimes that can last a long time until it goes through the court system.
So we are comfortable. Are we comfortable with the fine schedule as stated in the UDO?
Question for you, Jason.
Yes, sir.
I believe you said that you went out there 30 days and they were making progress. There will be no fine assessed. You give them an additional 15 days up to 45. You making another trip out there on day 45?
Yes, sir.
If they're still working on it, the fine's still gonna go into effect on day 46?
Like I said, at some point, we've got to draw that line. that can move to a full 30 days. So 30 days would go out, they are making reasonable effort, a substantial improvement,
That'd be a judgment call. on
which
it.
would be at my discretion. Then we can move 30 days prior or 30 days after instead of the 15, to give them a total of 60 days.
Any more questions or comments?
Question.
Rick?
Jason, so after the 60, that's when we go into the noose.
After the 60, if we move to that point, then 60 would start our fine. If we decide to go that route. So day 61, we would begin fining. So that would leave us around day 90 to go into the nuisance. Right. There is nothing in the UDO that sets days per se, or how many days we need to wait. It just advises that we have to wait 30 days prior to assessing a civil penalty. So whether it be 30, 60, 90 days, that is something that really does not have to be amended per se. It just has to be placed on me by the board on how to handle that.
If the board is comfortable, this doesn't require an ordinance amendment. Just move forward with this plan.
And the board can manipulate the days. Anything past the 30-day can be manipulated, because that's really up to my discretion.
Well, if the landowner or tenant one is making an effort, I don't see finding him, but you have to have a cutoff point somewhere. Some of them drag it out for 2 years probably, trying to clean it up. Can't let it go on forever. I don't know what that day is, but there has to be a cutoff.
Question, could the county propose a payment plan such as liquid taxes on this fine line? As long as it carries the interest.
That would be in the discretion of the county planner. But this board could direct.
Again, I'm more out to clean up versus to penalize our citizens.
Yeah.
Yep.
So anything of that nature would be great.
So we don't have to vote on changing the ordinance, but we're not changing it. Right.
If you want to give him specific direction about the time frame, I think probably should vote at the next meeting.
Okay.
Today's a work session.
Right.
But it'd be helpful to hear what your thoughts are, whether you agree this time frame with some judgment from the planner is adequate, or whether you would like to prescribe a different time frame.
I'm good with everything on here, except I agree with you. I think we've got to come up with a definite cutoff, saying, you know, this is it.
And Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I wouldn't be adverse to, after this time, you know, even if it's a day or two late, that if they get it cleaned up, I'd soon forego the fine. You know, that'll give them some incentive. You're either gonna pay us, you know, $4,000 or $8,000, or you get by paying nothing if you get it cleaned up.
I think that's what we're at. We're not after the fine, we're after getting the junk kind of cleaned up out of the way.
Right.
That's what we're looking at.
Right.
So can you incorporate these ideas, Jason, as far as? I don't know if there's is everybody satisfied with the fines? They're already in it.
The fines are in the UDO.
Everybody happy with those?
Right.
And nobody wants to change it?
Any thoughts on after the 30 days? Do we go 15 extra days? Do we give them 30 additional days? And
I think that's going down. We're gonna have to leave that up to the county planner, in my mind.
We can go out there.
If you go out there and he's making progress.
okay.
Everybody good with that?
And let's touch base real quick on our tenant versus landlord.
We want to know.
I will find the tenant. However, as mentioned, there is a lot of leverage in the landlord.
Yes.
So at this moment, we will not penalize the landlord. However, we will advise the landlord of what is happening
And you keeping landlord in the loop.
and keeping it going on. And we in hopes that he is supportive of keeping the county clean and forces his tenant.
I think it's gonna happen to do that because in a lot of cases, you get tenants that pile up junk on rental property and then they vacate and move somewhere else and they leave their stuff there. So, you know, the landlord's gonna have to move it, you know. Although he rented it to them, their stuff they left, they're gone now. It's his.
All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jason. Okay, presentation of kinship on the health insurance renewal.
So tonight we have Dave Costa, who's the area vice president for health and wellness for Gallagher, and they manage the NC Health Insurance Pool in CHIP. We've been a member of the pool, I think since 2018, when we got a very steep increase in our renewal from Blue Cross Blue Shield. We've been notified that our premiums will increase 6% next fiscal year. And Mr. Costa will talk about why that is the case. We've exhausted our pools, our reserves with some very large claims in the last couple of years. We do have to make a decision about whether we're going to stay within CHIP by the end of February. So this item will be brought back to the board at the February 17th meeting to vote.
Thank you, everybody, for the opportunity to present to you tonight. Again, my name is Dave. I am with Gallagher, but we are the representatives of the North Carolina Health Insurance Pool. So my day-to-day consists of a lot of the operations of the pool, which I'll talk to, but basically I do a lot of the underwriting, billing, monthly reporting, financial reporting, things like that. So I'm the numbers person, okay? So today we're going to go through just a history of NCHIP to remind you about the program, where we've come in the last 7 years. We'll talk about the renewal for the county, a little bit of summary of the programs, and just what the next 30 days would look like if you choose to renew with NCHIP. Okay. All right. You can move forward 2 slides, please. Just a brief history. So NCHIP has been around 7 years. We launched in July 1st, 2018. Caswell joined July 1st, 2019. So you came in our second class, okay? But it originally represented 7 governments that first year. We're up to 29 governments now. I'll show you a list of that in just a second. It represents 15 counties, 13 municipalities, and then 1 council of government, Piedmont Triad, our local council of government, okay? If you count up all the employees covered under this health pool, it represents about 10,200. And then if you count the dependents, so folks covering their spouses or their children, represents about 1,500 lives. So it's a nice size piece. And then when you're talking about insurance, one of the first things you'll learn in insurance class is the idea of the law of large numbers. That's just saying the more people on a health plan, more accurately predict that plan and also spread the risk across that population. Okay. So with that said, I want to give you a little bit of the history. So again, launched July 1st, 2018, original 7 members, we're up to 29 government members now. The membership is open to any county, city, or town in the state with at least 51 employees covered. So that represents all 100 counties, and about 200 municipalities would have access to this, okay? You only have 1 year membership term. So it's not like the state health plan where you go in there and you're locked in, you can't get out of it, okay? You just come in, and if you wish to leave, you can leave. No government has left this pool since it launched in 2018. New members are admitted by recommendation of the Board of Trustees. So my job to the board is I bring them prospective members that are interested in joining. I present that risk profile to the board. So let's say this is the time of year, our 30th and 31st member we're going to be joining soon, right? So my job is I present to our board, I look at the analysis of, let's say, for example, if Rockingham County wanted to join, I would present the risk analysis to our board of directors, which represents a member from each member government, and they vote to admit. My main job is to protect the health of this pool. So my main job is to protect our 29 current members and grow this thing sustainably. So what I mean by that is not everyone can come in. If I look at your risk profile of a county or a city or town, and we look at them compared to our pool, and they're not performing well, they're way above, it's not time to bring them in, because that poisons the well a little bit, right? So we're selective on who joins the pool. Again, members own the trust. Each government appoints one member to sit on the board of trustees, and the board does consist of a chair, vice chair, treasurer, and secretary. The next page just shows you a quick list. So like again, our original 7 members, year 1, made up a couple of large counties. So Catawba, Orange, Brunswick, also Allegheny County, and a couple of municipalities in Hillsborough, Morrisville, town of Wake Forest. Caswell joined us year 2, along with Macon County, the town of Kernersville, and the city of Oxford. Year in 2020, our COVID year, brought in 3 more counties. So we have Duplin County, Alexander County, and Warren County. July 21, Thomasville, Boone, Northampton, Roxborough, Piedmont Triad, City of Newton. I'm not going to list all of them off for you, but you can see it's been a consistent growth, and that's really what we're looking for, right? We want to, again, provide a pool that is sustainable and is growing at the right pace. So NCHIP's core pillars, just to, you can skip through a couple, it makes the notes come up on the bottom, but just again, our core pillars are stability, autonomy, service, and community. So stability means the largest increase ever passed on by NCHIP is 6%. We've never asked a group to pay more than 6% more the next year than they paid the year before. And then in general, the average increases in the pool are around the 2% range. I'll show you some stats here in a second. Autonomy. So any group that comes in this pool, we don't tell you what you need to offer, meaning this has to be your deductible, your out-of-pocket, your copay. Every single group is able to pick their own plan design to meet their needs. So that's important because the folks in the triangle, you know, when we're talking about Morrisville, you know, they're competing against the hospital systems, universities. They have to offer sometimes a richer benefit versus certain areas. So again, autonomy to pick and choose the plan design you want that meets your needs. Service, it's led by state's preeminent public sector vendors. We think Gallagher is there. Cherry Beckwith's our auditor. Pointer Sproul is our legal counsel. And lastly, community. So, you know, it's a program just for your community leaders, so government leaders, and not, you know, any kind of private sector. So the pool's grown substantially since our launch. Started out around, you know, 6,000 covered lives. We're up to 15,000 now. And again, that's what we're looking for. We're not just trying to grow for the sake of growth. We want to make sure as we grow, we're bringing in member partners that are good risks that helps everyone and helps Caswell County as well. If you go to the next tab, it just show you what the renewal history has been like. So let me just back up 1 second. Industry average. So the average increases with your health insurance premiums on an outside plan, if you were not inside the North Carolina health insurance pool, has averaged about 7.8% for the last 6 years. You can see those different increases. Now you see the average increase for NCHIP members are, you know, basically a quarter of that, 2.4% over the history of the pool. So that was the goal that we set out to achieve, was to beat industry trends, to provide sustainable increases to protect our plan. And then again, the biggest increase ever passed on is the 6%, and that's an internal NCHIP policy. So let's talk a little bit about Caswell specific and the renewal. So I'm going to rewind the clock 6 years now, but going back to the spring of 2019, Wes, my colleague, and I remember meeting in the courthouse with prior leadership. You guys were facing a 30-some-odd% renewal from Blue Cross that year. They wanted to increase your rates 30%. You had a large ongoing claimant that was a concern to them. So my job as an underwriter is like, we came in and looked at the data, and we were able to say, you know what, we think that claimant is only a liability for a couple more months, then it goes Medicare primary, because Medicare would take over at a certain point. And because of that, we were able to say, we think 11% is the right number. So not increasing your rates 30% year over year, 11%. It took a little bit of time going back and forth, but this is an example of the risk analysis, the approval letter, and the bylaws that were signed off on. So again, was a significant increase you were facing back then. We're able to offer a much more sustainable option to you guys. So specific to Caswell County, you'll see your first renewal, year one was 1.3%. We did no increase in FY 21, 1.5, 3.3, last year 4%, but this year we're asking for a 6%. So it's up against the increase that we offer. And the reason for it is your reserve has fallen and fall into right about flat. So there is no reserve right now. The idea is we want to rebuild that. I'll talk about what the reserves mean, but if you just think about it in general, we're operating as an insurance company. So any insurance company needs to hold a little bit of money in reserves, pay for unforeseen risk, and also pay for what's called run out. So for example, if you were to leave the pool, you still have claims that, let's say on June 30th, you have someone go in the hospital. It still takes a month or two for that claim to get paid. So again, an insurance company has to hold reserves for claims that are incurred, but haven't been processed and paid yet. I'll talk about the reserves again, but just an idea. So again, showing your average increase has been 2.7% over the last 6 years. Okay, talking about reserves. So if you just, I'm sorry for all the numbers here, but this is all the pools, so all 29 entities right now. And you'll see the reserve has grown nicely over the years. So up to about 27 million right now. That represents, you know, coming in our door each year is about 130 million. We pay out about 125. So every year we've been growing close to about $5 million in our reserve. Now, specific to Caswell, you'll see year one, we came out the gate very well, had a 353,000 reserve. It grew again in year two up to 524,000. Small change year three, but it's been going down the last 2 years. And basically we're at a break-even point with the data through January right now. You're gonna be right at about flat. Now we think you need to be holding about 200,000 in reserves, 200, 250,000. Again, that money is used to pay for incurred but not reported. So again, if you were to leave the pool, have those claims ready to be paid that have been incurred, but the insurance company hasn't processed and paid that claim yet. So again, part of our reason why we're asking for a 6% renewal this year is we want to cover your expected costs, but we also want there to be a little bit of surplus there to build our reserve up, okay? Last thing I'll touch on this page, sorry about that. The loss ratio in the pool the last 2 years has been a lot higher. And we're having a good year this year, but 119%, 109, meaning, you know, more was paid out than came in. If you were still on a fully insured basis directly with Blue Cross or directly with Cigna, they would have been asking for 20, 30% renewal to get you back up to a level that is sustainable for them. They're going to come, they're going to take their loss, and they're going to want to recoup that money. That doesn't happen in our pool, right? Again, so we're only asking for a 6% because we want you to have the stability. We want to grow reserves, but we're not going to have a margin call where we say, hey, you guys are behind the 8 ball, just send us a check for $200,000, get where you need to. Again, the idea is everyone that's in this pool, they're working together. So no one's asking you to post payment or, you know, have that kind of margin call again. So this just shows you an example of what the rates would look like. So again, we would like to increase rates 6% year over year. That means a total funding of just under 2.4 million going to just over 2.5. The difference is $142,000 a year. Now that is the total cost. There's decisions that need to be made. If all of that is passed on to the county, if part of it is passed on to the employees through their payroll deductions. But just giving you an idea, again, a 6% increase equates to $142,000 annually. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So we don't have to decide though if the county is going to absorb the increase or pass it on to employees at this point. We just have to decide that we're going to participate, so we can wait and see the budget before we make that decision.
I think this is a very powerful slide because this shows you what Blue Cross wanted to charge you 6 years ago to get you that 30% increase. It would have equated to 2.5 million. Where we are today, we're just getting up to 2.5 million, meaning we saved ourselves 7 years of increases by being in this pool. So again, the risk when you're outside of a pool like this is you're on an individual basis. So, in a bad year, they're gonna come and ask for that 15 to 20% increase. But in this pool, you're protected. You can not take more than a 6%. But over the years, if you just trend those numbers forward, again, I told you at the beginning, average increases in the medical industry are 7.8%. So if you take that 2.5 that was originally projected, look at that over 7 years, 22 million versus where you came in with Caswell County and you've been averaging 2.7% increases, 16 million. Very big difference when you look at this over a longer period of time. Any questions about the renewal and projections before I talk a little bit about some of the other programs?
I've got a question. Are we at risk getting kicked out of the group?
No.
This continues on. I mean, what can we do to build our reserves as far as the claims being reduced?
Yep. So I'll talk to you. We are putting in some programs to help better manage the risk. But to answer your question again, you cannot get kicked out. Once you're in, you are in. That's why we do a lot of due diligence on the front end, and we're somewhat selective on who we bring in. Yes. Speaking to some of those programs, sir, to talk about how we're better managing costs. So a couple of things. Some current programs that are inside the pool are our concierge team. So Blue Cross in general has seen, hey, this program has been very successful. It's been growing. They offered us a top-notch team of concierge individuals. So, and whenever you have an employee that calls in and needs any kind of help, they're talking to a very high-level person at Blue Cross that knows your plan. So they would call in, hey, I'm Sue with Caswell County. Right away, it pops up on their screen, and that person at Blue Cross can tell you, hey, how do you help you find a doctor? How do I help you with this EOB? How do I help you get this bill paid? Teledoc's another big one. You could think of the last couple of years, virtual care has gotten a lot larger. It's hard sometimes to get appointments, so virtual care has been a great option. Livongo is diabetes management. So if you look across the whole pool in general, diabetes and cancer are our #1 cost drivers inside this pool. So looking at programs, we can help manage those diabetes. Lantern is another one. It's formerly called Surgery Plus, but an option to go get elective surgery. So if you need a hip replacement, knee replacement, something like that that's scheduled ahead, you can go to a provider in Greensboro or down to Pinehurst and pay half the cost. So it saves the county money, but also saves the employee money. And the reason why these doctors are accepting half the cost is it's driving a lot of volume to them. Okay. Business solvers are Ben admin systems. So your team behind the scenes, this is a system to manage your eligibility in the pool, do ACA reporting. So part of the Affordable Care Act is reporting around who's been offered a plan and is that plan affordable. Business solver takes care of all of that. And then again, everything is built in. So what we pay in NCHIP, that includes all the accounting, legal, consulting, data warehousing, and so on and so forth. Some future programs, the biggest buzzword in the world right now are GLP-1 drugs, right? Ozempic, Mounjaro. So if you look at our pool, they're the #1 drugs in our pool. So if you think about it, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, folks were taking a $200 to $500 drug to treat their diabetes, type 2 diabetes. Now they're taking a drug that costs over $1,000 a month. That's the Ozempic and the Mounjaro. Now people are losing a lot of weight. There's a lot of indicators that this is going to help down the line to stop a heart attack, stroke, all these other things that can impact your plan. But it is very cost prohibitive right now. So again, we're putting in programs to deal with the weight management, making it not necessarily the first line of defense, but you have to go through some steps if you're going to get that very expensive drug to manage it. Progeny helps with fertility, menopause, just the whole family building process, and then also adding a virtual primary care option this year. So that Teladoc in the past, that was more for acute, urgent care kind of stuff. Now we'll have a program where if your employees and members don't have access to a primary care doctor, they can do that all virtually now. So hopefully catch something, for example, catch a cancer at stage 1 or 2 versus catching it later on. So again, we're always looking at programs we can add to better manage the costs and protect the pool as a whole. I just basically talked about all that. We can go through the next one, please. And just a quick overview of the other benefits. So again, I was talking here specifically to your medical benefit, your health insurance benefit. But in terms of our other benefits, the Delta Dental program is still under rate guarantee. So, excuse me, they're gonna give us a 5% reduction last year. Vision is under a 3-year guarantee that will not be up for renewal to 2027. This kind of gives you an idea of some of the other benefits we help you manage here at the county. And last but not least, just a timeline to give you an idea of what we're looking like for the, let me step back to Renee's point earlier. You need to make a decision over the next 30 days if you want to stay in the pool. But in terms of how we work inside NCHIP, we're in that season where we've delivered all of our renewals right now. So all 29 members, Wes and myself have been out to meet with them in the last 2 months. We do that in December and January. February and March is open enrollment planning. So finalizing rates, renewals, plan designs with all of our customers. And then we start and when we get to May, that's when actual open enrollment takes place. So when your employees and members can go online and elect what they want to choose for their benefits next year. So very common practice year to year. I'll just add one more thing. One of the largest benefits of NCHIP, outside of knowing that your cap is 6%, is knowing your renewal in December and January. Typically, if you're on the outside working directly with Blue Cross, Cigna, or Aetna, you're not getting that renewal till April. That makes budgeting a lot harder. So we're able to deliver that renewal because we're a large enough organization. And frankly, we're not an insurance company. We're not trying to hold governments or anyone hostage and figuring out, make it hard for them to make a decision. We want you to know where your renewal is, gives you the opportunity, the runway to analyze, make changes, things like that. But we think we have a very strong program and we've been blessed to have you as members. So want to thank you and hopefully take any questions you might have.
Questions while we got the man in front of us? Go ahead.
So I do want to point out something that you said, but not directly, and that is, should we leave the pool, we will be responsible for any unpaid claims currently estimated at $200,000, which means we'd have to go find insurance somewhere else and pay more than what the renewal cost would be for the outstanding claims.
That's correct. I would argue it'd be hard to find a benefit that would charge the same in premium, and then on top of it, you'd still owe the run out claims, so that liability for claims that were incurred while you're in NCHIP, but paid afterwards. So as long as you're in the pool, you will not have to pay that. But if you were to leave the pool right now, there'd be that run out that has to be funded somehow. There's no reserves at the current amount.
One question, you said you've not had anybody leave them. Let's say we did. We were to come back. We come back in at the same rate we're at now, or
I would have to re-underwrite you at what the current claims say. So if you were to leave for a year, but wanted to come back in, I would have to request data. I'd have some of the data from historical purposes, but I have to go to your carrier and say, okay, what is the most recent data we have? And I have to underwrite you based on that point in time. Now it could be that, there was a huge claim that popped up and you might not be a good fit to come back into that time. I think the board would evaluate that too, meaning the NCHIP board would say, hey, they've already left. It hasn't happened yet. No one's left yet, but you would have to be reevaluated based on the facts and circumstances at that point.
And pretty much it's your peers from the other counties that would decide if you got back in or not. Because they may be like, well, you all left and nobody else has done that just because you got a better rate. Now that you're not getting a better rate, it's almost like you want to crawl back to us, and it would kind of be at their discretion whether we were to get back into the pool or not, correct?
That's correct.
not like an boat job.
And another question, Dave. So the board does not need to necessarily at the next meeting to let you know. I mean, I know you need to know if we're going to continue to stay with NCHIP, but at that point, you don't need to know what the breakdown is going to be yet. At what point do you need to know that so it doesn't affect like the material that goes out to employees if we stay with NCHIP?
End of March, we want to know. So at the end of March, so one more month, at that point, I need to know your rates because again, Business Solvers or Ben Admin system. So for the month of April, they're uploading everything into their system. so that your employees can go log in on May 1st and actually go do open enrollment. So think about it, there's a little bit of time for testing, quality assurance and all that. So I would say we would need to know your plan design and your rates, how you're going to structure those rates by the end of March.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions?
I got a couple more, Renee, after you finish.
I'm all,
Before we get to, how does Calvin compare with your other 48 as far as the rate increase? Do you have any other 6%?
there's a couple 6% this year. Yep. Big reason being, again, is those GLP-1 drugs. So 2 years ago, no one knew they would take off the way they have. And again, if you think about it, a couple years ago, someone was taking a metformin or a Jardiance that may be very cheap for $200 or $300 a month. Now they're taking a drug that's $1,000 a month. So it's somewhat of a catch-up period to get the rates to that point. But yes, there are a couple of groups getting a 6% this year. This is the highest renewal we've passed on, but again, big driver is those high cost drugs.
Like the 6% that is increasing is still far better than the industry.
Absolutely. Industry averages are 8 to 9% this year. Yep.
And Dave, could you speak a little more about the accuracy that the business saw by having that and us not manually entering things in, how much more accurate our reports and things are?
Yep. So it's a great tool for me. As I mentioned, I do operations. So if you think about this tool houses the data on all 10,000 employees that are covered. So all your team does, so Ashley in HR, if there's someone who leaves the plan, she goes in the system, turns them off. If there's a new hire, goes in and adds them so that our eligibility is always up to date and being updated every single week. So it's a big time saver for them because that also sends files to your other vendors. So Delta Dental or Community Eye Care. So it's a great time saver. All this is built into those premiums you pay. That system is available to you and really making your life a lot easier.
Any more questions for Dave?
One question I do want to ask you, I looked at on this and I saw you had in here about the surgeries, about going to specific locations for that. What are you seeing is the cost savings to the employee by doing that?
Sure. I'll give you a perfect example. Knee replacement. We had a member out in Wilson County that needed a knee replacement. They decided to look at this program. And there was a doctor, and to go through your normal Blue Cross and Blue Shield would have been about $35,000 for the knee replacement. Through surgery plus, that program was $20,000. So the way it works is the employee doesn't have to pay any. If they go through that program, we're going to waive their cost share. They're not going to have to pay their deductible and they're out of pocket. So what that means is instead of that employee paying, if you're getting a knee replacement, you're going to hit your out of pocket your deductible. So let's say that's a $4,000 liability. We just took that liability off them, and then the savings flow back to the plan. So again, $20,000 surgery. The plan, Castle County, is going to cover that $4,000 deductible. So instead of paying $35,000, you end up paying $24,000 for that surgery.
How does that help your building your reserve? Help build it?
Well, in the sense of if we're better consumers, we're going to have less in claims in our premium and protect that premium so it can keep building into our reserve account. It's just a cost control tool. Every little bit counts in the sense of when we're talking about $120 million health plan for all of NCHIP as a whole, we can save $1 million on our surgeries. It's chipping away at it. It's nothing that's going to move the needle huge in 1 year. But again, if we have those right controls in place over time, it's going to protect us. And it allows us to keep those 6% increases and not have to put a cap higher than that.
Any more questions, Mr. Costa? Thank you, Dave. Commissioner Reed, and then we've got something.
Two things. Have you tried to price it with anybody else?
We've actually contacted a broker to talk about getting quotes.
Okay. So he's working on that for you. We'll get that before we have to pay into the budget.
Probably not.
Secondly, what do the employees say about this program? On the list.
I have not heard anybody complain, and I've been with the county for about 27 years now, and as far as our insurance, I mean, I think it's comparable, like the benefits and everything that we have to, being a good plan for today's, health insurance. And I will say, anytime employees need help, there is always somebody there at their team that's willing to answer any questions and to help you out. And I just think like the surgery, I still want to call it Surgery Plus, but Lantern, it could even help determine, with some employees, $3,500, $4,000 out of pocket. Now that's a lot of money. That can maybe decide whether that employee is going to have that surgery or not. I mean, I think that's just a huge benefit too. And we have monthly meetings with all of the group that's on there, and they're always giving us updates and keeping us, abreast of like all the reporting where we are financially. I know they even shared their audit at the last one, and any new programs are always looking hard, like to bring new programs in to help as well. So I've been impressed with them.
So you're happy with
I am.
And sir, I'd add as well, that the employees don't know that they're not direct with, they're still with Blue Cross, but they have no idea that they're not fully insured or in a pool or anything. It's just us in this room and the management of the plan that really know that, how the financing of the plan works. But from an employee facing perspective, they just think they're Blue Cross.
So there are a couple of things that I was all for getting a broker and getting quotes on insurance when I found out about the 6%. But there are two things that made me question whether we should do that. One is the cap, the 6% cap. I have been in jurisdictions where we've had 20% increases in insurance in a year, and that's really hard to absorb in the budget. And the second point is, if we go out of the pool, we're going to be responsible for that $200,000 or so. That's the estimate of claims. And really, that we won't save anything by, even if we were able to find a comparable plan.
We will need to make a decision if we're going to continue with NCHIP at our next meeting. So y'all think about it. If you got any questions, you should all have Mr. Costa's email. Can't get in touch with them. Renee can refer him to you. I guess she might be able to get touch with him. Y'all be prepared to vote on that 2 weeks. Thank you, Mr. Costa. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, next item, we talked about this a little bit at our retreat on Saturday. We need to get an audit for our, what year is it?
24.
24, audit. We don't have a contract for anyone to do this yet. Renee, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, we did talk about this during the retreat, and it seemed to be the consensus of the board that we want to go ahead and get our current auditors under contract so that they can, while they're finishing the 23 audit, begin work on the 24 audit. The one issue is we don't have enough money budgeted in the current year to do both audits, but we want to get both audits done. So if you are inclined to move forward with the contract, then we'll need to bring a budget amendment to the February 17th meeting, which would increase the budget by $85,000.
And they can't do anything concerning 24 until we have a valid contract, correct?
I don't know if they can't, but they won't.
They won't.
Which I really can't blame them.
Okay.
So by doing this now and getting them under contract, will it facilitate getting these audits done quicker?
I believe so. And that was Jonna's recommendation as well.
And have you got an estimate? 23 audits gonna be done? Because I think day before yesterday was the last day it was posted. I see it already told us there was some things that were fine.
I do not have the latest estimate. I will have one at your 17th meeting.
Do you anticipate taking this out of fund balance, or do you find other areas you can pull this 85,000 from?
I will look for other areas, but if not, it needs to come from fund balance.
Any other questions?
So this would count as the initial meeting. So we can vote it on the next time.
Yes.
So we don't need to vote on doing it tonight. Okay.
Well, I think you want to vote on the contract. The question
That's
is,
funding.
exactly.
Okay.
I don't know. I think you'd have to suspend your rule to be able to vote on it. And I didn't even think of that. I apologize. But now they are starting in earnest this week back on the 23 audit. And so we want them to be able to work on the 24 audit at the same time.
I think we need to make a motion to suspend our rules on this one matter.
So is the motion to suspend the rules and approve the motion? Point.
You got to vote.
Thompson, Price, Scott, Adams, certified public defense.
First, you
Motion
got-
to suspend the rules.
First, you got to suspend. the
Because
rules.
this is gonna be spending money that's above $10,000 or whatever that amount was. I can't remember.
That's right. It is.
Yeah, $10,000. You make that as a motion to suspend the rules.
I'll make that as a vote.
Not second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of suspending the rules, let me know by saying aye. All opposed, motion carries. Now, do I have a motion to approve the contract with Thompson, Price, Scott, and Adams?
Make a motion.
Have a motion to have a second? Motion, Mr. Smith, second by Ms. Nguyen. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. All those opposed, motion carries. Got that taken care of. Okay, fiscal policy and passport. Under discussion.
So, this is a continuation from the retreat. We presented the fiscal policy and went through it in some detail. I would like for the board to consider approving this at the next meeting. A fiscal policy really gives, a city or county a good foundation for making its financial decisions. It gives clear direction to the staff about what your goals are and how to achieve those. So I wanted to represent it tonight just to see if there are any questions or concerns in your packet. The changes from current practice are highlighted in yellow. So I'm happy to step through that again if you would like me to, or if you just want to take questions.
Are there any changes since retreat? Everything just like it was?
Exactly as it was presented.
Any questions? Anyone?
If accepted, do you propose to start with the executive meeting?
Yes.
Anyone have an issue bringing this up at the next meeting for approval? All right, very good. Moving right along.
So another continuation from the retreat are your goals. Ms. Sharp and Ms. Cannon have completed the summary that was included in your packet with your goals, what they heard your goals to be during the retreat discussion. We do have a budget kickoff with departments on Wednesday. So I would like to at least be able to share the draft goals, even if you want to revisit this at the 17th, it'd be helpful to at least give them an initial set of goals.
We went over this, like the county manager said, during the retreat on Saturday a week ago. Talked about it some then. You've had it for a few days now to look over it. Anybody have any questions, comments? Is everybody happy with what they see as far as it goes? Moving forward. No one here knows, so I guess everybody's satisfied. Okay. Next item, Co-Square leasing to help community alternative program.
So currently, the Community Alternatives Program, also known as CAP of the Health Department, leases space at 2254 NC 86 in Yanceyville. But that lease is up March of 25. We've been talking about trying to increase utilization of Co-Square, and I did include in the, not last week, but the week before, an analysis of Co-Square that I did that showed at least in 24, before the fire, Co-Square membership fees covered over 200% of the cost. So we were actually realizing revenue that year from Co-Square. So my effort is to try to get more traffic and more people in there. And this is, I think, a win-win. So they can move into, the CAP program can move into Co-Square. The rent is covered by Medicaid revenue, so it's not coming out of county coffers. And that they'll be able to pay us rent, and we'll be able to realize revenue from that Medicaid revenue. The proposal is the health director would like to rent 4 adjacent offices. We've identified those offices. They rent right now for a total of $2,850 per month. We are proposing to set the rental cost at the same amount which they currently pay, $1,850, plus the cost of utilities and internet, or a total of $2,500 per month. I do, in full disclosure, need to tell you that the current landlord reached back out to the health department to offer to lower the monthly cost by $300. So if the board feels like that you need to match that proposal, I'm fine lowering the cost by $300 per month. It's still revenue that we would not otherwise get. If we leave the rent at $2,500 per month, the county will realize $30,000 in revenue that we currently pay to someone else.
Did the board have to approve that rental agreement?
And they did.
Questions?
I have a couple of questions actually. What do you propose the lease period to be?
That is a good question. I would say at least 3 years, just to not be disruptive. It's, difficult to move and you don't want people to be without service while that's occurring.
Okay. All right, I saw where you said Medicaid will pay a portion of the money. Do we match for a full fund out? Is that 100% then?
So Medicaid fully funds the CAP program. I think each year, sometimes they use fund balance in order to balance their CAP program budget. So fund balance money is coming from a variety of sources, state, federal, and local dollars.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I just I got the short straw and I got put on the health board. And the health board discussed the same thing, because when it was coming up to the commissioners, somebody had to. And just a little history. The reason they didn't, they couldn't go there, they wanted to go to Co-Square originally. And the commissioners at that time were going to charge them more than Medicare and Medicaid pay. So the commissioners were going to be paying them, give them tax dollars to give it back to them in rent, which to me wasn't good math. But now, like I say, Medicare pay this, no out of pocket expense with us. And so it's a win-win situation for the county. And this is what they want. I mean, they have some things they'd like to change, like, for privacy, which they have to have privacy, and HIPAA laws require the privacy. But it's nothing that's not insurmountable. So I would recommend we do this. Now, little caveat. You said they were making 200% return on the dollar before the fire. And of course, that whole lot of that went away, fire, people didn't come back, now people are getting in and out of home. But is there an employee working there?
It includes the employee,
They include the employee,
yes.
okay, but it ain't doing it now, so we need to have something we could utilize this space for that purpose, it's been empty.
Well, I mean, I think having the health department in there will generate interest and traffic and, I mean, I see it good all the way around.
Any other questions?
You know, I support Coast Square, I have from the start. We certainly need revenues coming in, but for the board's consideration, we just need to point out the fact that about 42% of the Coast Square will be leased to county offices now. I think 5 out of 12 offices will be county, including economic development.
Which offices are they talking about?
So in the back, there are 4 offices. There's where the Arts Council used to be. Across the hall from that, Tony's old office, and then across the hall, there's another fairly large space. So they're all in the same area. They wanted them to be adjacent.
But they, not any of the office space that's on the main entrance where you go in.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the $300 reduction that the landlord has offered that. How are we gonna, how is the health department come to you and said, will the county drop their rent 300?
No. And I asked Jennifer that question specifically, but I mean, it's in their best interest to get the reduced rate if the board would so choose. And I'm okay, I'm the one pushing for the rent, but I'm okay, reducing it by $300.
So it'd be $2,200.
Correct.
But that's not costing us a dime.
True.
You know, better get paid 25. Why do you want to go to those all slap your face?
That's true too. But
What was that other 300 better?
Operations.
Because would they likely be utilizing like the copier, probably more so than other tenants over
They
there?
probably would.
That may make up their difference, I don't know, I mean, you know, I don't know how many copies they make. I was just saying copy.
But I think copies would be the only direct
Right.
expense we would have, because we're already paying the utilities and everything.
So would we actually have to set that up in reference to maybe that privacy, confidentiality, and that kind of stuff when it comes to space in the building, or can we do that when we have to do that?
So I think the health director will take care of those measures, and if we need assistance from the maintenance director, we will get his assistance. But she hasn't given me a list. These things have to be done before we move in, so I think they're very open to working with us.
But you're reasonably sure that Medicaid will pay the county officer.
They're paying somebody.
any other questions? You all good with this? All right. We'll bring it up, back up for approval. Finance officer recruitment.
Well, dealt a major blow last week, for sure. And I've been talking to folks and pondering this kind of day and night about what the best way forward is. And I think you have 2 options. One is we can re-advertise the finance officer at the higher salary range that you approved. My concern with doing that is the difficulty of the situation that they're walking into. It could cause folks not to want to take on that amount of work. We have somebody who's being paid right now through the Association of County Commissioners, who has worked on this since, for, I think, I don't know, 2 years, about 2 years. Who knows where the issues are and who's fixing them. I know none of this is moving as fast as we would like, but when you have a mess that's been taking years to make, it takes a while to straighten it out. And we think that we fixed one thing and then something else pops up. So it's been a lot. We will have some budget amendments coming to you and we'll talk through some of the things that we found. What I would like to propose, and I think the best solution, I talked with the Association of County Commissioners last week about increasing Jonna's time. And I've talked with Jonna and she will agree to that. We will have to cost share with the NCACC. Right now they're paying the full freight, but we can pay, if we can pay part of her cost, then she can increase her time to between 8 and 16 hours a week and be on site for a second day. And I think that that is the best way forward to get us, and at least until the fiscal 24 audit is done. If we can get to that point, things should be in working order and we should be able to hire somebody as a permanent finance officer. The other thing I had talked about, and I don't know that, I think Russell thinks we're clear that whether we can name her as the finance officer in a contract position. So Russell hasn't found anything that contradicts that. When I talked to the Association of County Commissioners, they thought that that wasn't possible. So before we took that action, then I think we would need to do a little more homework to make sure that a contract person can serve as finance officer. In lieu of that, Melissa Miller would continue to serve as interim finance officer, and we would contract separately with Jonna for that additional time.
Questions?
What is gonna be the cost associated with our part?
So approximately $52,800 from now until the end of the fiscal year. Yes.
And you got that money already in the budget.
We do. Yes.
And you were saying 2 days on site and 16 hours off site?
So she works 24 hours now per week for us. So this would add 8 to 16 hours, and she would bill us for the actual hours. But that would give us a lot more capacity to get everything out the door.
Is there any way we can get some? Yes, I'm looking for the right word. Some hard dates.
I'll ask.
And the reason I'm asking, I'm to the point, I want some hard dates. I want to say, I want some hard dates, but I also want some weekly updates.
Okay.
I should go split a time between finance officer and the audits.
So, I mean, the priority is the audit, but right now it's about 50-50. She's, the thing is, when you're doing the audits, you find, oh, we're doing this wrong, so we need to fix that. So you run into operational issues as you're cleaning those things.
In the way that Ms. Miller continues to do the day-to-day functions
she
of
is.
finance, and then she concentrates on nothing but this.
Well, I'm not sure that's entirely possible because sometimes we need Jonna's expertise on the day-to-day things.
Right, but I mean, stuff that can be handled out apart from the side.
Yes.
And it's not that I'm trying to hold her feet to the fire. I just, when dates come and they go, I'm hoping we get over them. It's like.
Any other questions?
Donna's got a pretty full plate. She had to drop the counties and we have to give us stories, other counties. If we can put forward today.
She is, I think the one county she's helping now besides us is Forsyth. And this would still give her at least one day on site with Forsyth County. And this is the plan she presented to me, so she's in full agreement.
But this would, if the board decides to go this route, this would be in effect until we got the audits caught up. And then we would re-advertise.
Absolutely.
She stay until we get that refinanced.
Yes, and the NCACC will pay to onboard for her to train the new finance officer. So it's a great arrangement.
Any more questions, comments? Everybody good with this? Item? Okay, the two additional agenda items, I believe the first one was on the personnel policy, well, right?
Mr. Chairman and board members, I spent a lot of this weekend reading the county personnel policy. I think it was, revised in 2024. So what I'd like to propose is an amendment saying any employee who leaves their job prior to end of workday hours must notify their supervisor, or if they're a supervisor, they notify the county manager. And that failure to do this is walking off the job, and that could lead up to a written write-up for unsatisfactory job performance or dismissal. And that they must stop their county pay when they leave the job on that day.
So you want to amend the personnel policy, if someone leaves before the workday is over.
Right.
That they have to get approval from either their immediate supervisor or candidate.
Or if they are a supervisor, they must ask permission from the county manager.
Are you aware that that's not happening? Because I kind of thought that was, I mean, it may not be spelled out in the personnel policy, but that's just always been,
Kind of vague,
okay.
really. What do's and don'ts are not very real clear. I mean, so, you know, do not steal, do not use county property for personal use. So that's kind of in there. But it doesn't go into a lot of detail. And
So, just a couple of points. We can certainly bring this back at the February 17th meeting as an amendment to the policy. There are department heads I don't supervise.
I know that, that's the Board of Health and Social Services. We don't have dominion over there. Employee.
Any other questions?
One question, I mean, what do you, I guess my question would be, what do you mean by leaving off of the job? I mean.
Well, the job is 8 to 5.
Right.
12 o'clock they leave. Just because, you know. And
To go home and talk to the.
and whatever. I would say if you got a doctor's appointment, you're going to tell your supervisor, your manager, you know, look, I've got a doctor's appointment today. I need to be, it's only right to tell the people you work with what you're gonna do. You're leaving, and that matters for what reason. To communicate why I'm leaving.
I'm kind of lost on this, as far as the proposed amendment, because I'm figuring that if you are a county employee, that you don't just leave off the job and no one knows where you're going. Having that in mind, that would be the employee opportunity that when they are getting off work, whenever that may be, and they are allowed to get off work, then they can go anywhere they would like to go with their time.
Commissioner England,
Yes, sir.
you work for the State Highway Patrol, right?
Yes.
What if you went in on patrol, and after about 4 hours, you said, I want to take the rest of the day off? What would you do?
Like I said before, contact someone to ask.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Just make it.
That's what I'm saying. I'm just trying to figure out who would actually be an employee here that decides to just get off work and leave and don't let anyone know. That's just where I'm at on that as far as,
It's not
you know, the
clear.
personnel policy.
It's not clear in the personnel policy about this. You need, it's not written out, you must notify your supervisor, or the department supervisor, or the county manager.
Okay.
That's all I'm asking. And then they do it without pay. They have to quit their pay when they leave.
Yeah, man, I got no problem. If the gentleman or the ladies leaving for the day going home, yeah, I'll think she should let the supervisor know they're going home for the day. If they're going home and they're not coming back from home for the rest of the day, yeah, I have no problem in that one.
How does county employees accrue vacation time? So something that always work.
It depends on your years. You know.
Right, the longer your service,
Right.
the more vacation time. you
Like,
get.
cause you start off with 6.64 for vacation, then it accrues as your time goes more each month, and it's always just 8 hours a month.
So if an employee came into work at 8, decided at 12, they want to take the afternoon off, they would have to use vacation time to do that. Am I not looking at this the right way?
Or leave without pay.
Okay, either one.
Yeah, but
Or comp time.
Or
Well,
comp
there-
time.
a lot of different options. A lot of options.
But what I'm asking, Mr. Chairman, is notification.
Oh, I got you. I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. All right.
They can use whatever other means they have to get paid or not get paid,
Okay.
but not their normal pay. If they leave and turn in the time, that's true. I've used 4 hours of comp time or 4 hours of sick time. That's the problem.
Okay, let me ask you this question. If it's a department head and they cannot get in contact with the county manager, what are you gonna do then?
If you got an assistant county manager, you notify the assistant county manager. And let them make that decision.
We also have a payroll system where we can note when we're leaving. We can make a notice for where we are. And you can look at the payroll system, see what, they cannot get in touch with the county manager.
Well, they need to do it before they leave.
They can do it themselves anytime.
So you think they should leave without permission?
Now, I said, they cannot get in touch with the county manager.
Then you got an assistant county.
One if they out sick, I'm just throwing out there, one if the assistant's out sick.
Call the chairman for
Well.
it. Call the chairman.
Well, I got a problem with employee having notified me, so that's not an issue. I just don't want us to get too bogged down. I'm gonna just throw a scenario out there. Let's say we got an employee that works in department in maintenance. And I don't know, I know already head maintenance, I don't know all the employees. Say we've got an employee who works in maintenance, but he's also a certified EMT. can't EMS have to be short-staffed that day or has a big scene. And they need some more medical help. This person says, you know, I mean, indeed, I need to go to that call. In a situation such as that, are we going to give the county manager the authority to say they have a blanket, not a blanket excuse, but tell them whenever there's a call such as that and you're needed, you're okay to leave?
You still have to ask permission.
You're putting a mighty hard timeline there, David. If somebody's a situation, if it's a bad situation, you've got an employee that has to wait 20, 30 minutes.
If he's one EMT who's not a member of the EMS, they got people that do this.
I know that, but it could, and I hate putting questions, and I'm,
You got environment that show up. First responders that show up. That person asking their supervisor, look, I need to go to this situation. Then he's free to go. He's free to go. I'm just saying, ask for permission. You better get permission on this thing, then ask for forgiveness.
Because I know that in most departments, the supervisor and department head should be holding that accountability anyway. I mean, I know where all my people are, you know, and when they're going to want to be off and if they're not there and that sort of thing. So to me, it almost looks like it kind of goes back to the accountability that your supervisor and your director should know where your department heads should know where your employees are.
What do you do if you don't have time to make that call?
Well, we can have time.
Okay.
You know, everybody,
Okay.
you asked me a question. Okay. You asked me a question, so I get the answer. If you, everybody's got a cell phone, everybody works under a supervisor. If you can't, if he's not there, call him. What happened? I'll tell you, I've worked in industry 40 years worth. And I tell you, if a person left the job without notifying their supervisor, we didn't wait, we fired them. Okay. Tony, you've been in business. If you had construction people that walk off the job, did they have a job when they came back without saying anything? We need to be notified. Yeah, you need to be notified. That's all I'm asking.
Well, and I understand that. I just brought up the issue if there was a circumstance or a incident where you didn't have time. Prime example, I don't remember if it was 2002, 2004, we had a deputy in the county that was working. He was traveling, doing his normal stuff, normal routine stuff. Structure fire call came out. Deputy was right there at that call. He responded. He pulls in, gets out, goes up to the house. Smoke's coming out of the house, goes in the back door, and there's an elderly woman and an elderly man in the house. Man's laying on the floor. She's not able to get him out. The deputy, and by that time, another fireman had got there. Those two together got that gentleman out. Deputy goes back in with a fire extinguisher, starts trying to put the fire out, gets it knocked down pretty good to where the house didn't sustain as much damage as it could. There was no time to make a phone call. There was no time for him. What? I'll let you talk. There was no time for that deputy to make a phone call to his supervisor and say, hey, I need to go do this. That deputy went in and did what he had to do. And that deputy was me.
Well,
Wait a minute, I'm not finished. I'm not finished. Let me finish and then you can talk. If I had not have done what I did that day, that gentleman and that woman could have easily gone up in that house. We're a small county. We ought to be working together versus apart. And I don't understand where if somebody's doing this, they're doing it out to help the taxpayers of this county who ultimately pay their salary to begin with. And that's all I gotta say about it.
okay. But you missed the point. this doesn't apply to deputy. Sheriff, they work for an elected official. Plus, emergency services, like a deputy is an emergency operator. He comes in times of emergency. So you would be compelled to do that, or you could derelict your duty. But I'm talking about not deputies, can't really talk about health department, because we're not under dominion on them or the social service, but you got other employees. And the only thing I'm saying, and they're not emergency workers, then they need to do their job and contact the supervisor.
If we have other employees that are firemen, or whatever,
Firemen are not employees of our county. We might be paying for firemen in a few years. And probably sooner than later, then they are our employees.
so you're saying that if a fireman who's a county employee is traveling by my house or your house, and Mr. Smith, anybody in here, and a call comes out, you wouldn't want that worker to stop and help you, or just continue to drive by because he can't get in touch or she can't get in touch with her supervisor?
Give me an example. Give me an example.
You ever have a heart attack, you're laying in the floor of your house, and a county employee who is an EMT hears the call. They're not working that day as an EMT, they're doing animal control. I'm just putting it out there. They pull up in your driveway. Your wife comes out and says he's laying on the floor having a heart attack, and they say, wait a minute, I have to call and get permission from my supervisor.
You're making up stories.
No, I'm just.
That don't have a foundation.
So.
You're making up stories that don't have a foundation.
No, I'm just saying, so in an incident like that, there's an emergency, they're okay to go help, is what I'm asking.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that.
All right.
No, but I'm in agreement when you saying about a person need to call. My whole point was, I just don't think it is anybody that is a county employee that just actually leave off the job without contacting anybody.
Happened last week.
The thing is I also feel like in this small county, there are many people that wear a lot of hats. So my thing is, if you need me, I'm coming to help. It shouldn't be an argument about somebody going out here and they're not they helping, but now we're looking at them and saying, well, you shouldn't have done that. Well, if a person done that, then that should be on their supervisor. That's why I'm saying, as far as the personnel goes, that stuff is done by department heads or supervisors that would probably allow, and if a person didn't, it was probably a reason that they just couldn't for that fact. That's what I'm saying.
Any other questions, comments on Mr. Rand's proposal?
You brought up that happened last week, what happened?
I'm not talking about that open session. But Renee, I talked to Renee about it. She said, she didn't have it. Okay. That's all I want. People to know where the people are.
Right.
Or not.
Any other questions, comments? All right, we will revisit this issue at our next meeting. And the other thing, David, I didn't do it.
Open meeting law.
Okay, go ahead.
During research on this situation that happened last week, I found out that in, I think it's around November 2023, they addressed this issue with the same employee. And it was done in closed session. I can't tell you because I haven't seen the closed session minute. But the next day, at the board on that regular meeting, made a decision as a board. And the next day, a former commissioner went to the county manager and said, I don't like that. So, and this is what I was told by the acting county manager at that time. they called 3 other commissioners and they rescinded what was done at the meeting, like, oh. That is a clear violation of open meeting law. No advertisement, no emergency. No notice to the press, and I don't think there's any minutes. All there.
The minutes do not indicate the action that was taken.
Okay, so
Or the
anything
action
that
that was
was, anything that tries that rescinded what was done by the board as a whole goes away. So it's a legal act of a meeting. Yes, ma'am.
I meant the closed session minutes do not reflect the direction to the employee.
Well, that's a big mistake. You got a recording,
We don't record closed sessions.
you need to. You know, but action was taken, the next day it was rescinded. You can't rescind it, something that you have authority to do.
Let me clarify a little bit, because I was in that position.
Okay,
The board never discussed. Never possible.
I'm talking about was an instruction given to them.
A group of commissioners, I won't call them names, came to the county manager and said, we have a liability problem. County manager contacted the attorney and confirmed that they may be a liability problem. Working with officials for. But that's our service. And we were advised, based on what impact we had, that maybe we should not have any further participation in these services. So that's when the letter, the notice went out. The majority of the board found out about it. They took a poll, the clerk took a poll, and they all voted to rescind the notice. It was not an official public policy.
Wasn't an official act of the board to send this notice.
As it turned out, it was not. It was under the direction of the chairman.
But that's not what I was told.
That's what happened.
You told me something different.
I did.
We're all commissioners notified and requested to participate.
They were all notified to participate in the vote to rescind it, but they were not advised as to what the policy was going out.
You told me the other day 3 commissioners voted law.
I said the majority did.
No, you told me.
Clerk.
I called 3.
Policy, the poll, I was not part of the poll. But she came back and said that majority wanted to rescind it, so I did so. Told by the chairman to write the letter. Checked with the attorney, he said, you probably right in doing so. The board came back to me and said, we want to rescind that, took a vote on it and decided that's what we wanted to do.
Not in
And
a
we acted on that.
not in a legal meeting.
I say that.
Did you, when you called these other commissioners, did you,
I didn't know.
or call, you instruct,
I didn't ring her.
you
I
instruct.
did not instruct her, it's chairman did.
Well, who was there the next day? When it was rescinded, who was there?
She told me it was the vote of the majority of the board to rescind it.
That's not a vote. Cannot do that.
For clarification, let me see if I got the facts of what. Let me just ask you, Commissioner Smith, the action or the letter or whatever it was that went out, was that a result of an action by the board?
No, it was not.
Okay. If it was not a result of action by the board, I think we'd beaten a dead horse right here. If the board had had a motion approved, whether it's in closed session or not, you can't approve it in closed session most of the time. It's got to be done in open session. Very few things, Russell, that we can actually vote on in closed session, if I'm not mistaken. If it was an action that the board, or a non-action, I guess you'd say, from the board, the board can't actually rescind it. So if the county manager was instructed by someone on the board or a portion of the board to do something without full board's knowledge, it wasn't on the up and up to start with.
Well, but trying to call certain commissioners and rescind something that wasn't. You're doing the same.
If both were wrong, both were wrong.
But I wasn't at the commissioners meeting. Y'all evidently had a commissioners meeting and went into closed session and discussed.
I don't want to call it, David. I swear, I just don't.
Well, even,
I do not recall it.
Minutes to reflect.
well,
We may have, but I don't recall it.
what I'm pointing out. The
shouldn't have been
meeting-
done.
The second meeting was an illegal meeting. Now, I was told it was discussed.
It may have, but I do not recall. I don't.
And that's the problem with vague minutes.
If it was discussed and voted on in closed session, it probably should have not been done in closed session. And it should have been, if it was gonna be changed, it should have been done in open session. I agree with what you're saying, but I don't recall us taking the action whatsoever.
Well, some commissioners remember some things and some commissioners.
I agree with that. I can't all remember what I did this morning, so, you know.
But I don't think whatever was, if it was a letter of agreement or consensus to send this letter, the next day, another commissioner says, let's don't send it. So,
Well,
I'm just saying,
whatever it was, it shouldn't have been, it shouldn't have been sent unless it was a board decision to start with. It shouldn't have been a couple, 2, 3, less than a majority of the board instructing the manager to do that. So it should have been, you know. And
then why?
we did, one board member has pretty much no authority. Now, the majority of the board has a lot of authority, but one board member doesn't have any.
But yeah, we're all equal in the eyes of the
Exactly.
law. And,
Exactly.
you know, this thing about not notifying everybody about it, or sending some, I don't know, y'all. You know, agree to send a letter to somebody and close session, but you can agree to send this letter to an employee or a person in closed session. You don't have to take a vote on that. You can agree. And you instruct the county manager to take care of this.
And
then the next day it says, you know, I didn't like that vote last night. I didn't like that closed session for Saturday last night. Call 3 other people and, let's see if we can't stop that.
oh, I agree with what you're saying, but I just don't recall that taking place, is what I'm saying.
Well,
I just don't.
some believe it, some don't.
Everybody's got their opinion.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so let's see where we are. County manager updates.
So I just want to reiterate the items of information that I've sent the last 2 weeks. Here. Just to the co-square report again, I do have copies of that report if anybody needs a printed copy. From the week of the 27th, I did send out a year budget report for 24 that Commissioner Smith requested. And also general statutes on filling a board vacancy. And I'm working on providing all the answers to the questions that the board asked during the retreat. Hopefully that'll go out this week in the weekly update.
Right.
Yes.
That was a great report you sent about actual expenditure, but that was done by the department. When we get the budget, we'll be doing the line item of each department. Such as salaries, electricity, blah, 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 everything.
If that's
Everything is
what
in
the
that
board wants.
department.
That's what the board wants.
Well, I think those do a proper review of the budget. We need to know what line items look like. So that's what I would like.
It needs to be broken down. Not in minute detail, in some detail, yeah. Okay. All right, Mr. Attorney.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. At the last few meetings, there was a discussion of the cemetery committee here in Castle County, whether to abolish that committee. I did research the general statutes. I have the state law to hand out to. So, General Statute 65-111 provides overview of what counties and municipalities in the state of North Carolina are required to do as it relates to public cemeteries. And this statute states briefly that each board of county commissioners shall have the following duties and responsibilities. Most important of which is to prepare and keep on record in the office of the Register of Deeds a list of all public cemeteries in the county outside the limits of incorporated municipalities. In my research, I didn't see any requirements or any state law that obligates the county to have a cemetery committee. So if it's the board's discretion or choice to move forward and abolish the cemetery committee, it will not be a violation of state law. And as it relates to this statute, I'm not aware of any public cemetery in the county outside of the town of Yanceyville that the county has to manage. So,
It doesn't pertain to private.
no, sir. So I wanted to just give that update to the board. Just so you have that knowledge of it.
Do you want to take this up at the February 17th meeting?
Be fine.
Okay.
Ask a question. If we purchase one out and they have a cemetery, whose responsibility is it to keep up that cemetery? Church closed or?
It's my understanding that that is still considered a private cemetery outside the purview of the county. Unless the county wanted to take it over and designate it as a public cemetery, but.
That's,
Yes, Mr. Red.
a couple of years ago, our church was looking at breaking away from the United Baptist Church. And we were told, you know, well, if you go out on your own, if you close down the cemetery, still you have to appoint trustees to the cemetery. And it's their obligation and duty to maintain. So it's still part of the church is still would have responsible for that cemetery. Even if if the church took the building back, which that's something we don't agree with on the church, but they own your property, but they don't own the cemetery. You are responsible for the cemetery. The people.
Commissioner Gwynn, here in the town of Yanceyville, the old Yanceyville Methodist Church closed its doors and they decided to turn their cemetery over to town of Yanceyville. So now that's known as the Yanceyville Municipal Cemetery.
Is that the only public cemetery in the county?
That's the only one I'm aware of. But we could certainly do some research.
No, that's fine. I was just curious. Couldn't think of it all. But yeah, if Madam County Manager, we will take up abolishing the cemetery committee at our next meeting. Okay, Russell, anything else?
Mr. Chairman, I'll also be attending the County Attorney's Winter Conference, County Attorney's Fundamentals Workshop Thursday and Friday of this week. This workshop is put on by the UNC School of Government. So look forward to attending these classes, and certainly there'll be some legislative and case law updates. So I look forward to advising the board of any new laws that may affect the county.
Commissioner comments, Mr. Smith?
Actually, comment, but, first question, when do you anticipate us going back in the old format?
1st of March.
Oh, correct. Okay. The second is, just want to go on record. Renee and I talked about the 23-24 budget, and we were a little bit concerned that budget was so much more than actual expenses, about $4.4 million, about 11.1%. So yeah, I requested that you go back and actually start from scratch and start with the base expenses and add to it what we need from last year, but not to take the base and add just Saying what's flat.
That's how I budget, Commissioner Smith. I go back,
Oh, I was glad to hear that.
I go back to the dollar.
Okay, so you don't take off, you don't start with last year's budget.
No way.
Okay, good, very good.
And off 11% is not a very accurate, but
Ms. Rand?
I'm gonna agree with Mr. Smith. That's why I asked for it to be broke down by category of each line item, because if you don't cut it, we will. But what they've been doing the last few years, since they don't have audits, they don't know what the actual expenditures were. It's just, we're gonna take what was budgeted last year and add a little bit more to it. That's far. Now, when I looked at those numbers that you spent on, it was horrible. We got a bit better job.
We plan on it.
I think we're ready for all the work when we get that.
Ms. Wynn, Mr. Ingram? All right, upcoming events, our next meeting will be on the 17th, right here at 6:30. And March the 3rd, another work session at the old courthouse, you think, Renee, possibly March the 3rd,
Yes, I'm hopeful we're back in the courthouse.
okay, at 5 o'clock. All right.
I walk back that right there to give them a more comfortable chair, but it's sitting there. Ain't no cooking on this.
Okay, closed session to consult with an attorney for obtained by the public body in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the public body, which privilege is hereby acknowledged on Carolina General Statute 143-318.11, subsection A3, and to consider the qualifications, competence, performance, character, fitness, conditions of appointment, or conditions of initial employment of an individual public officer or employee or prospective public officer or employee, or to hear or investigate a complaint, charge, or grievance by or against an individual public officer or employee under North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11, section 86. Do I have a motion to go into closed session? Have a second. All those in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
We are now sitting in closed session.